The Emperor's Cursed Bloodline. In the early years of the 16th century, when the Holy Roman Empire stood as a vast but fragile web of kingdoms, power was often inherited, but stability was never guaranteed. Among its ruling houses, none was more feared, or more whispered about, than the House of Valenbruck. 4 generations, its emperors had ruled with authority, yet each reign seemed shadowed by strange illness, sudden madness, or untimely death. What the court called misfortune, the people had begun to call a curse. Emperor Matthias IV ascended the throne in 1512, a man of discipline and intelligence, determined to restore strength to a divided empire. At first, his rule seemed promising. He reformed taxation, strengthened alliances, and brought a measure of order to lands long torn by internal conflict. But beneath the surface of political success, something within the imperial family remained deeply wrong. Matthias had grown up watching his father descend into violent paranoia, convinced that enemies surrounded him even within his own court. His grandfather had died young, reportedly from a sudden and unexplained fever. Stories of earlier rulers spoke of similar fates, visions, erratic behavior, and deaths that no physician could clearly explain. The pattern was too consistent to ignore. The emperor did not believe in curses. He believed in causes. Determined to uncover the truth, Matthias ordered a private investigation into his family's history. Not through priests or mystics, but through scholars and physicians. Among them was Dr. Elias Brenner, a quiet but brilliant physician known for his careful observation and refusal to accept superstition as explanation. Brenner was granted access to records few had ever seen: medical notes, personal letters, and detailed accounts of past emperors. He worked in silence for months, studying the symptoms described across generations. Patterns began to emerge: sudden behavioral changes, periods of confusion, intense mood swings, and physical decline that often followed. When Brenner finally requested an audience with the emperor, his findings were unsettling. "This is not a curse," he said carefully. "It is something inherited."
Matthias frowned.
"Inherited? You mean an illness?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Brenner replied. "One that passes through blood. It does not affect every generation equally, but when it appears, it grows stronger over time." The emperor listened in silence. The idea that his family's suffering was not divine punishment but something carried within them was both a relief and a new kind of fear. "Can it be stopped?" Matthias asked. Brenner hesitated. "I do not yet know, but I believe it can be understood." From that moment, the emperor became both ruler and subject of study. Brenner observed him closely, documenting everything from his physical health to his temperament. For a time, Matthias showed no signs of the condition that had plagued his ancestors. His mind remained sharp, his decisions measured. But history had a way of repeating itself. In the 3rd year of his reign, small changes began to appear. At first, they were subtle: moments of unusual irritability, difficulty sleeping, a growing suspicion of those around him. The emperor dismissed them as stress. The responsibilities of ruling an empire were immense, after all. Brenner was not so certain. He recorded each incident carefully. The symptoms matched those described in earlier generations. The pattern was beginning again. As months passed, the changes became harder to ignore. Matthias grew increasingly distrustful of his advisors. He questioned reports, doubted loyalties, and began to isolate himself within the palace. Decisions that had once been thoughtful became impulsive. Rumors spread quickly through the court. Whispers of the curse returned. Brenner faced a difficult reality. He could observe, record, and even warn, but he had no cure. Medicine of the time had little understanding of such conditions. What he recognized as a hereditary disorder was, to others, proof of something supernatural. One evening, as tensions within the court reached a peak, Matthias summoned Brenner privately. "Tell me the truth," the emperor said, his voice quieter than usual. "Is it happening to me?" Brenner met his gaze. "Yes, Your Majesty," he said, "but it is not beyond understanding." Matthias turned away, walking slowly toward the window overlooking the city. "My father said the same thing," he murmured. "He believed he could control it." "Control may not be possible," Brenner admitted, "but preparation is." The emperor was silent for a long moment. "If I lose my mind," he said finally, "this empire will suffer. I cannot allow that." In the weeks that followed, Matthias made a series of decisions that puzzled his court. He began delegating authority more carefully, strengthening councils, and ensuring that governance would not rely solely on his judgment. Officially, it was presented as administrative reform. In truth, it was preparation. But his condition continued to worsen. Paranoia deepened. He became convinced that some members of the court were plotting against him. Several advisors were dismissed, some imprisoned. Fear spread within the palace, not just of the emperor's power, but of his unpredictability. Brenner remained one of the few individuals Matthias still trusted. Through it all, the physician continued his work, documenting every stage of the illness. He knew that while he might not save the emperor, his observations could help future generations understand, and perhaps prevent, the same fate. One night, as the emperor's condition reached its most severe point, Matthias called Brenner to his chambers. "I can feel it," he said, his voice strained. "The same madness that took them all. It is not a curse, as you say, but it feels like one." Brenner said nothing. There were no words that could fully answer that. "I have done what I can," Matthias continued. "The council is prepared. The empire will endure." He paused, his expression softening slightly. "Promise me something." "Anything, Your Majesty." "Do not let them call this a curse," Matthias said. "Find the truth. So this ends with me." Brenner bowed his head. "I promise." Within a year, Emperor Matthias IV was declared unfit to rule. Power passed to his successor under controlled conditions, avoiding the chaos that had marked previous transitions. Official records spoke of illness, but avoided detail. The whispers, however, never fully disappeared. Brenner continued his research long after Matthias was gone. His writings, though limited by the knowledge of his time, laid the groundwork for future understanding. What had once been called a curse would, centuries later, be recognized as a hereditary condition, one that affected not just a single family, but many across Europe's royal bloodlines. The story of the House of Valenbruck faded into history, often retold with exaggeration and myth, but at its core remained a truth far more grounded, and perhaps more unsettling. Not all curses come from the unknown. Some are carried quietly, passed from one generation to the next, hidden not in shadows, but in blood.